I've been a fan of anime my entire life, starting all the way back Dragon Ball Z on Toonami. I was just a little kid, barely remember those days, but I remember watching Dragon Ball Z. I was probably like 5, maybe 6 years old, something like that, watching Inuyasha when I'd wake up in the middle of the night. And I watched like every anime from then on, all the way up until the names got crazy and isekai anime was everywhere. That time I got turned into a rabbit and slapped a girl and she turned into a mermaid. And it was crazy. When you start getting anime titles like that, that's when I'm out. That's when you lost me. And also there was just so much fan service anime. Bunch of anime was just the same. Trying to beat Jujutsu Kaisen as of late. Anyway, I'm sure that background NPC has something different to say that I probably agree with. Anime ruined me. From background NPC.
I did not set out to cry over anime sword-wielding teenagers, but it did happen. One minute I'm collecting Pokemon plushies, the next I'm wearing a brown military jacket and feeling extremely patriotic for a country that doesn't exist.
True, same. I used to love Pokemon growing up. Fire Red was my first Pokemon, and Diamond and Pearl was my last Pokemon. But Attack on Titan, 10 out of 10, it may be my favorite anime.
But before I tell you how I got there, let me just say this. When I first discovered anime, it hit me in a way that nothing really else had. It was the first time I'd watched a show that not only didn't kind of skip past some of these heavier emotions, it also didn't even deliver them in the
I think Death Note was the first anime that I watched that was like, not just a shonen fights bigger than the last fights. And Fullmetal Alchemist, the original one.
typical way that I had been used to. It really sat in them, soaked in them uncomfortably at times, and it caused something in me to shift. The characters weren't just cool or funny or exaggerated, they were emotional disasters in the very best way. Screaming, breaking down.
Oh yeah, Parasite the Maxim. Another 10 out of 10. One of the first anime that I watched on Netflix randomly. Was it Netflix that I watched it? I watched it on something. Netflix is really where I got into anime. I watched that's where I watched Death Note. And a bunch of other random ones that I don't really remember because they weren't very good. Speed Grapher, was that one of them?
Trying to hold everything together. Loud, messy, sometimes even ridiculous, but it never felt fake. All their pain, their joy, their hope, it all felt extremely real. It wasn't just entertaining.
I still haven't watched Evangelion. I need to.
It was very true. Sometimes brutal, sometimes beautiful, sometimes both in the same 5 seconds. I'm talking extremely complicated trauma and high stakes drama. And the monologues that would just want to make you hit pause and sit there just to catch your breath. And the animation, whether beautiful, grotesque, or dreamlike, it carried all of it. It made all of the feelings land, and it's some of the most beautiful art that I've ever seen.
Yeah, I feel like a bunch of modern anime is like they just put it into an anime generator. It's like, yep, this is an anime. They all look the same. Not all of them. I mean, a bunch of the 7 out of 10 anime looks the same.
And with all of this, anime completely changed how I think about storytelling, about characters, about performances, about what draws you in and what keeps you there. I didn't even realize how much of it had shaped what I love, especially in games, until way, way later. And I didn't know it at the time, but that was when I started falling in love with a different kind of storytelling. The kind that remains with you and then shows up.
Oh man, Grave of the Fireflies, don't even bring that one up. That is the worst 10 out of 10 movie that I've ever seen. I don't ever want to watch that movie again. Literally the saddest shit.
Days later when you're just brushing your teeth, like, wait, why am I still thinking about that scene? And eventually, that love bled into the games I played too. Don't get me wrong, I need great mechanics and gameplay, but I started paying more attention to all of the gut punches in the more narrative games. The way that a scene is paced, the way a line is delivered, how sometimes silence can even hit harder than dialogue.
And these aren't going to be anime games that she's talking about because most games based on anime are trash, and a lot of them are mid.
Anime helped me realize that storytelling is not just about plot, it's about feeling. And once I noticed that, I could not unsee it. It's a huge part of why I care so much about the stories and characters I engage with now. So yes, this is my anime origin story. Because anime didn't just introduce me to cool characters and wild drama, even though yes, it absolutely did. But it showed me what I've always really loved: emotional, impactful storytelling. Let's begin. Like many 90s kids, I was deep in the Pokemon trenches. Cards, VHS tapes, plushies, full Pikachu lifestyle. And then, when it came to what was...
I was watching the anime on VHS and I only had a few of them, so I barely got into Pokemon. I got pretty into Pokemon later on when I had a babysitter, and I would watch Pokemon as soon as it would come on in the morning. As soon as I'd get to her house is when it would come on before school, and that's where I watched Pokemon most. But the GBA games, those Game Boy Advance games like Emerald and Ruby and Sapphire and Fire Red, Leaf Green, those were the shit, man. Moving on over to the DS, I played Diamond and Pearl, and then that's where I fell off on Pokemon. What was the Pokemon that was after that? That was the reason that I stopped, was because the Pokemon after Diamond and Pearl was just kind of like not interesting to me, and I guess I aged out of it.
Allowed and what was not allowed, Dragon Ball Z was totally fine. Somehow watching a guy scream in a crater for 10 minutes was considered acceptable viewing, but Sailor Moon, that was a no-go.
Or, you know, a guy and an alien floating around in the air talking to each other about how they're gonna beat each other for 10 episodes straight.
My mom said that the villains were too scary. Well, Mom, I'm so sorry.
Dude, Sailor Moon, there are different reasons you shouldn't be watching that. Mostly because it's creepy.
This is how you're finding out, but I still watched it. I didn't even know that it was anime at the time. I just knew that it had cute outfits, big feelings, talking cats with beautiful jewelry, and romance. It was magical and theatrical and completely unlike anything else on TV at the time. Flash forward to college. Yes, I know, that is quite the time jump. I had kind of forgotten about Pokemon and Sailor Moon, and life was totally normal. I was totally normal until one day my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, said, "I know you don't really watch anime, but we should totally..."
Oh, she's got a husband? Damn it, I'm gonna stop watching her videos now. Ew!
Watched this show called Attack on Titan, and to say I just watched it is a complete understatement. I suddenly...
Right? Dude, I was encapsulated with this. I was completely immersed in Attack on Titan. I watched literally every episode of Attack on Titan as they came out in both Japanese and in English since day one.
Went from having zero thoughts about anime ever to spiraling into emotional chaos. Within 4 episodes, I was pacing around my room, pausing, rewinding, attempting to memorize every ad break lore dump. It was just over for me at that point, just like that. Up until this point, I truly had never experienced storytelling delivered in this kind of way.
Yeah, and we're probably never gonna get that again. Attack on Titan was like peak storytelling.
It was extremely visceral, heavy, and it wasn't just dramatic, it felt very urgent, and I was instantly obsessed.
Before Attack on Titan, we had Fullmetal Alchemist, and that was peak storytelling, Brotherhood especially. And this one just came out of nowhere. Legit came out of nowhere. I think that the manga had been out for a year or two by the time that they made it into an anime. Just way too soon. So we had to wait so long for things.
At this point in time, I hadn't even noticed that anime wasn't quite cool yet. I didn't care. I was too busy spiraling. Shortly after discovering what anime was, I discovered what manga was. And the next thing I know, there I was reading manga in the Barnes & Noble aisle like I was studying. So
Attack on Titan is the reason that I found out about manga. Or I knew about manga because of Naruto when I was a kid. But I didn't really get into manga until I was trying to spoil stuff for myself for Attack on Titan, because I had to know what was coming up next.
Some kind of forbidden lore. I had no table, no chair. It was just me crouched in the graphic novel section like I was decoding prophecy. It had truly felt like I had discovered some kind of secret society. I started watching AMVs and binging lore deep dives on YouTube like they were documentaries.
Bro, I still do that.
At some point, I even walked into Hot Topic with my part-time job money and walked out with the jacket. You know the one, the brown, glorious, cursed Attack on Titan jacket. And I wore it like it was high fashion. Like I had some kind of personal invite from Levi himself.
Bro, if I had one of those jackets right now, I would probably own it.
At this point, I've been through all of our photos like 10 times trying to find a single one of me wearing this jacket, and I can't freaking find it. So you're just gonna have to take my word for it, please. But it was my go-to, I promise. Until one day I was at a coffee shop ordering a drink, and the barista in front of a full line of people just points at my jacket and goes, "Oh hey, isn't that from an anime?" I just kind of froze because this was the first time I'd ever had to say it out loud to a stranger in public with people listening all around me, and it totally caught me off guard. I said, "Yeah, it's from Attack on Titan." And
Dude, if I would have seen her just randomly in a coffee shop or something, bring up anime, like, oh yeah, you know, this jacket's from an anime, I would have across the room been like, that chick is fucking awesome.
immediately I felt the ice. The guy behind me, the girl near the pastry case, all silent, confused, judging. I'd honestly felt like I just confessed to being in a cult, but like a very enthusiastic one with playlists and fan art. And that was my first real indicator that anime was still very much a niche thing in public. The jacket? Yeah, it quietly got reassigned to around my house only. But despite the jacket incident, I continued.
Man, you should have just owned it. You should have owned it and just been like, yep, that's from an anime. It's from my favorite anime. It's awesome.
Continued to dive deeper and deeper. Pulling up Crunchyroll, I was adding every big title I
fucking hate Crunchyroll. I have a burning hatred for Crunchyroll. I think that Crunchyroll did so many bad things for the anime community. Like making every fucking anime the same. Like, that time I was reincarnated as a slime. That time I was reincarnated as a sword. That time I was reincarnated as a little girl. That time that I was reincarnated in another world.
ever heard mentioned to my watch list. Tokyo Ghoul, Fate Stay Night, Maid-sama, Cowboy Bebop, Sword
Fucking love Cowboy Bebop. Actually, I take it back. I think Cowboy Bebop might be my favorite anime. Ah, shit, there's also Ghost in the Shell. Damn it.
Art Online. But every show hit totally different, and my lineup was questionable.
I binge watched Sword Art Online when it came out, when it was just that first season. And I thought the time jump was weird. I didn't really like that. I watched every episode of Sword Art Online until it got close to the end. And I was just kind of out. I watched the ending and then it kept going. And I was like, okay, why?
To say the least. I'd go from watching people get decapitated in Akamega Kill to crying over piano scenes in Your Lie in April to
I love Akamega Kill. That one hurts though. That one's a painful watch.
quietly sobbing through A Silent Voice. The emotional tone shifts were at times very wild, but somehow it all worked together very weirdly well. But really, I should have known that I was primed for this, because before anime ever got to me, I had no idea that Kingdom Hearts had already paved the way. Going back to my childhood for a quick flashback. In 2005, my parents got me a PS2 Slim for my birthday, and with it, none other than Kingdom Hearts.
I also had Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, but I didn't associate it with anime. I don't think very many kids did, actually. I have a friend who in school and in high school thought anime was super lame and was for nerds. But he loved Kingdom Hearts, and I'm just like, bro, you're being hypocritical. Eventually he came around and he was like, okay, I get it. Some anime is like actually great historical art.
From the gorgeous title screen music to blasting Simple and Clean in the first cutscene, I was just sitting on the floor, controller in hand, completely captivated by what I was seeing. The animation, the dreamlike tone, at that point in time, I had not experienced anything like it, and I just kept replaying it. I would restart the game over and over again just to watch the intro, and whenever friends would come over to play, I'd be like, well, hold on, wait, let me just show you this really cool thing real fast, and I would boot up a whole new save file. They didn't always appreciate it, shall I say, but I was totally hooked. And that was probably my first real taste of emotional storytelling in games. But getting back on track, let's talk about some of the first characters I really fell in love with. The ones who maybe hit me at the worst possible time in the best possible way, and the ones I still think about more often than I probably should. The characters that truly unlocked my love for anime and impactful, heart-shaping storytelling. And along the way, I'll just be throwing out some game references that match the vibes, just in case. Now, one thing about me, I love a good archetype. The soft healer, the angry prodigy, the stoic weapon who absolutely feels too much but pretends otherwise. And the best part, these aren't just anime things. They show up in games all the time too. It's like emotional damage has its own genre, and I must really love it. Otherwise, you think that I would have learned my lesson by now.
I also am a pretty big fan of archetypes. I just don't like when they use the same generic archetypes in every single thing. Like, so many anime use this, like, hero that has hidden power and is super lame and everybody doesn't like him and is picked on and is, like, slowly becoming friends with everybody and everybody's realizing that he's super powerful and then eventually becomes overpowered. So many are like that. Boring.
So up first, we're gonna kick off our list with a bit of a gimme, Eren Yeager. The one who really started it all for me. He's angry, impulsive, and reckless.
The Elric brothers from Fullmetal Alchemist is what really started it for me. I think that was the very, very first emotional anime that I watched. I didn't finish it. I finished Death Note. That was the first one that I finished. But I bought all the DVDs for Fullmetal Alchemist, the original one. And then I went out and bought Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. And I liked it even more. And then I read the manga.
But kind of with just enough righteous fire that you root for him anyway. Watching Eren start to crack under the weight of everything, questioning his purpose, doubting himself, and then doubling down even harder. It felt very raw in a way that I hadn't seen before. And say what you want, but I am an Eren defender till the end. And honestly, once you've defended Eren Yeager, defending Joel from The Last of Us kind of feels like child's play. Edward from Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Yep, goated. Absolutely goated. It's where it all started with me.
My favorite short king. He's cocky, brilliant, and carrying so much guilt for a child. He's also very fiercely protective. His entire drive, the constant fixing, sacrificing, it always comes back to Al. That sibling bond is really the emotional engine for the entire show. And Edward will hit you right in the feelings, especially if you love characters like Prompto from Final Fantasy 15, the ones who kind of joke their way through pain, but would throw themselves in front of danger without any hesitation. Akame from Akame ga Kill.
Dude, I think we love the same anime. Because Akame ga Kill, that one's up there for me. I fucking love that anime. It hurts. Like I said, it's a painful watch if you haven't seen it.
She's very efficient, quiet, and emotional in all the ways that sneak up on you. She doesn't talk that much, but when she does, it hits you very hard. In her final fight with Esdeath, I don't think I'd ever seen a female character quite like her.
That's one of the greatest fights in all of anime, honestly.
She was so beautifully lethal and emotionally unreadable. I've yet to play Nier myself yet, I'm so sorry, but from what I do know,
I've also not played it.
she reminds me a lot of 2B. Calm, focused, repressed, but somehow still very emotionally devastating. Kaori from Your Lie in April. She's
I haven't seen that, but I have it.
so bright, beautiful, and tragic, and is just one of those characters that very gently destroys you. And she wasn't just some manic pixie dream girl, she was hurting and then still trying to bring light to everybody else around
I might have to give that one a watch.
her. Gave very much Aerith, very much you'll cry, rewatch, and question your mental stability. Terror and Resonance, whole cast.
I haven't seen that one. I've heard of it. I've heard it was good. I haven't seen it. I'm gonna have to add that one to my list real quick. Because it sounds exactly like something I'd be into.
This show caught me so off guard. I thought I was just gonna get like a cool, moody thriller, and suddenly I was totally devastated. It's very quiet and beautiful and so heavy in a way that just kind of sneaks up on you, kind of like if Inside or Journey had more dialogue and drama. Asuna from Sword Art Online, one of my first real favorites.
Yeah, same. That was one of the first anime that I watched. I think it went Full Metal Alchemist and Death Note. Finished Death Note first, and then Full Metal Alchemist. I finished that after that. And then Brotherhood, and then Akame ga Kill, and then Sword Art Online right after that. I think that was literally the order that I watched anime in.
She could have been just the love interest, but she's so much more. Strong-willed, smart, emotionally aware, and very quietly fierce.
Yeah, I liked it, and then she became the damsel in distress in the second season, and I didn't like it anymore.
I loved how she could be terrifying with the sword and then turn around and offer someone gentle encouragement. She kind of reminds me of Sherry from Resident Evil 6. Yes, I know, very different tones, but stay with me. Both very
That's a very interesting choice for a comparison. I actually like Resident Evil 6.
composed, sharp, and kind of even keel under pressure. And she's really been through it, but she doesn't make a huge deal about it. There's such a quiet strength to her that is so steady and likable. By this point, I had realized anime wasn't just good, it was crafted. And I think that's part of what made me fall in love with it all.
A lot of the anime that I was watching at that time, I was trying to find the quick anime so I can get through as many anime as I can. I was watching stuff like Dead Man Wonderland, Death Parade. That one's an amazing watch. 10 episodes long, I love it. Dead Man Wonderland, that needed to be longer. Erased, that one's one I watched recently. That one's good. I'm trying to think of anime that I was watching when I first started watching anime, like hardcore watching anime. I watched so many. I watched all of Fairy Tail. In like 2011, I watched all of Fairy Tail.
Anime made space for emotional storytelling in a way that just felt very true and lifelike. It wasn't afraid to sit with very messy, intense stuff. Grief, longing, rage.
Oh, and every single Studio Ghibli movie, I almost forgot. Especially Kiki's Delivery Service. That's the one that I watched over and over again as a kid.
Hope, and really just give it room to breathe. The pacing, the pauses, the way a scene can flip from goofy to gut-wrenching in seconds and still feel totally earned. What really got me, especially kind of earlier on, was the very vast emotional range. The screaming, the crying, the sheer intensity, it was all so exaggerated but very intentional and authentic. I would go watch Western animation and then anime would just feel so much more mature.
Yu-Gi-Oh! How did I forget Yu-Gi-Oh! I was super into Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually, you know what? I take everything back that I said. I think that's probably where I started with anime. I didn't really realize that it was anime, but I was collecting the cards, we were playing the cards. Mostly the cards, we weren't really into the show that much, but Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, that was my shit.
Almost, like, I don't know, like it was some kind of higher level.
Oh, also, I watched all of Zatch Bell.
Kind of like going from normal cable TV to HBO, at least in years
Claymore? That's a good one.
past. They've had some struggles recently. In fact, anime was one of the very first things that got me interested in voice acting. The delivery, the breath work, the emotional cadence of a single line, it all very much blew my mind, and it kind of planted the seed for something that I did not know that I'd end up pursuing later. And yes, I have seen so many sweet comments about my voice, and it really means more than you guys could ever know. I have been voice acting as a hobby for the past 4 years, and no, you haven't really heard me in anything that you would know yet, but hopefully.
Yet, she became super famous, super fast, and people are commenting on her voice. I think she's gonna end up in something. A video game or an anime or a cartoon or something.
Soon. So thank you so much for all of the kind words. Also, a bit of a confession. I was totally a sub-only purist when I started out. The raw emotional delivery in Japanese just hit different.
I start with subs, and if I really like the show, I'll watch it dubbed, unless I hear that the dubbed is way better than the subbed and it's already out, then I'll watch the dubbed. But normally I just watch sub, and then I'll watch dub if it's a 10 out of 10.
But recently, I have found myself loving the dubs. 100 Girlfriends, Solo Leveling, the performances have just been so good.
I still haven't seen Solo Leveling. I probably should check that one out.
And I have a whole new appreciation now that I've actually met people in the industry. Matching the timing, the intensity, and still making lines feel very emotionally grounded, it is definitely not easy. And English voice actors have to honor the tone and the rhythm of the original while still making it seem completely authentic in a totally different language. They've come a long way, and it's only been getting better and better. So yeah, I did not grow up watching anime, and at some point I kind of fell off again, and it's not
100% I did. That was like my main entertainment was anime and video games. And I think I watched more anime than I played video games, because play video games throughout the day, you know? But anime, I'd start that as soon as the sun started going down, I'd start watching anime. Because we had multiple channels that had anime on a lot. Plus, we were getting VHS and DVDs of anime from like flea markets and yard sales all the time.
Because I stopped liking it, but because life had just got in the way. These days, I keep up with the bigger ones, Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen, Mashal, you know. But I haven't really fallen into something in a long time.
I actually haven't seen Demon Slayer or Mashal, and the only big one that I've been following is Bleach. The new Bleach is fucking phenomenal if you're a Bleach fan.
Lately, though, I've been wanting to change that. Not just watching like a filthy casual, but actually getting really back into it.
Watch Wolf's Rain. That's a good one.
I miss caring way too much about fictional people in a fun way, because anime didn't just kick off a phase, it made me realize the kinds of stories I'm always going to be drawn to. The ones that are soft and heavy at the same time.
Shit, man, I need to catch up on some of the newer anime from the last few years. Ever since COVID, pretty much, I just fell off.
The beautifully flawed characters, the emotional gut punches, the quiet moments that hit louder than the hard ones. It's the same feeling that I get from games like Red Dead Redemption 2, Final Fantasy, To the Moon, Celeste, or A Plague Tale, where you're playing along and suddenly a line or a very intricate detail or moment just kind of hits you and you're like, oh, okay. That's probably gonna live in my head forever. But whether it came from a cutscene, a betrayal, a soundtrack, or an episode that you stayed up way too late to watch, please tell me your spiral story. Or, I don't know, if there's a show that hit you a little harder than you expected, drop it in the comments because I need to hear your recommendations. What should I start off this next arc watching? I'm very open to spiraling again, so let's build a watch list.
Go back and watch some of those classic anime. That's what I've been doing here recently. There's a bunch of like cyberpunk anime that I missed from the 80s and 90s that I'm checking out. Stuff that's like Akira, whatever you want to call it. I haven't seen Cyber City 080808. I haven't seen Angel Cop. I'm checking those out. I am anime. Anime is me. Buy a t-shirt down there in the description. I'm out.